today. Welcome. We are really glad that you are joining us today to discuss about e-marketplace and e-catalog. My name is Leticia Monteiro. I work at UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme. And today it's the second webinar we organize this year to share good practices on eco-label and sustainable public procurement. The first webinar was on how governments were using this tool in their NBSAPs, in their national plan and strategy to protect biodiversity. And as you all know, we have COP16 in Colombia arriving soon. And today we are going to speak about e-catalogues and e-marketplace and see also the role of labels in with those tools that are supporting public procurers in their sustainable public procurement journey. Perhaps also before we start, just a few housekeeping rules. So I guess by now you are all familiar with Zoom, but you can see we have a chat section and also a Q&A section. So please feel free in the chat to introduce yourself. We'll be more than happy to know who is with us today. And if you have any question for the panelists, also you can write them in the Q&A section. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have time to ask a few of those questions. So let me introduce you to our two great speakers, and thank you very much for having you here today. So Chetri Furat and Ashley McLennan. It's a real pleasure to have you. So Ashley McLennan is a researcher at Eco Institute. So welcome, Ashley. Ashley is an expert on sustainable public procurement. She has been working for more than a decade on this topic and also on circular economy. She has been a leading author on a publication related to the topic we are going to discuss here today. So it's a real pleasure to have you, Ashley. Thank you. And we have also Chetri Furat. Thank you, Chetri, for joining us. Chetri is the director of the Green Label and Eco-Label program in Thailand. She's obviously an expert on eco-labeling, but also on public procurement. And she will share with us today the experience of Thailand. So thank you very much for that to both of you. So if I may share a bit of the agenda of today, I will first give you an overall introduction on who we are, what we are doing, to give you a bit more of exposure of the Consumer Information Program, which is part of the One Planet Network that is hosting this event, and also the EcoAdvance project. And then we will have Ashley explaining to us what is an e-marketplace, what is an e-catalog. And after her introduction, we'll have a deep dive with Chetri presenting the case of Thailand. And in Thailand, we have an e-marketplace. She will explain that to us. And afterwards, we'll again have Ashley explaining what are e-catalogues in detail and sharing some interesting case studies. So without further ado, I will start my presentation. I hope that you can all see my screen. So first of all, just to explain you a little bit who we are. So here today, we have two, let's say two spaces that we're sharing. The first one is the One Planet Network, and within the One Planet Network, there is the Consumer Information Program. So on one side, we have the Consumer Information Program hosting this event, and on the other side, we have the EcoAdvance project, which is a project funded by the Ministry of Environment of Germany that is focusing in particular on public procurement and eco-labels and how those two tools can contribute to achieve the SDGs, biodiversity, climate change, and pollution, how we can use those tools to achieve our targets on sustainable consumption and production. So here in my screen, you can see the logo of the Consumer Information Program and the One Planet Network. This year, we are really proud because it's the 10th year of the Consumer Information Program. This is a space where we gather all stakeholders of society, private sector, government, universities, civil society. And all together, we work to achieve the SDG 12, but with a specific focus, which is access to the information. How important it is for consumers to know about the impact of the product they purchase. And in this webinar today, the consumer is it's the government. We are speaking about public procurement. The Consumer Information Program has 4 working groups, and also I'll briefly introduce them to you because it might be of your interest to join us. So the working group 1 is on providing product sustainability information. It's on the importance of making sure that all consumers have access to this information, the sustainability of their product. The working group 2, that is organizing this webinar today, is on ecolabels and certification schemes and how we can strengthen them, how we can make sure that they have an impact, that also they have ambitious criteria regarding climate change, biodiversity, and pollution. The working group 3 is on product lifetime extension. So how to make sure that consumers know about the importance of extending the life of the products, how they can have access to more information on repairability, etc. And the working group 4 is on biodiversity and consumption. So how consumer can be more aware on the impact of their consumption on biodiversity. So I really welcome you to join us. In the chat, it would be fantastic, Maëlys, my colleague, if you can add the link of the Consumer Information Program so that people that are interested to join can reach out. And also, I did not mention that in my slides, but we have also a program on sustainable public procurement. So in the website, you will have all the information. And again, I invite you to join us. So this is the kind of activities we do. You can see webinars such as the one today, events, presentation. We have a website with plenty of information, a newsletter where if you are a member, you can share your information, but you can also learn from what is happening in this topic in other parts of the world. And we have also social media. So, and together we have joint projects to work together on achieving SDG 12. So this, as I said, when I started this webinar, we have 2 main initiatives supporting the webinar today. The Consumer Information Program that I just introduced, and now the EcoAdvance project. So the EcoAdvance project is about greening supply and demand, advancing ecolabels and sustainable public procurement for climate and biodiversity protection. So this project is funded by the Ministry of Environment of Germany, and we are jointly implementing it with GIZ and ECO Institute. And again, I'm really happy to have ECO Institute speaking here today with us. So this project focuses mainly on 5 countries in Latin America, but one of the objectives of this project is also to share good practices. And this is what we are going to do today. So how ecolabels and sustainable public procurement can contribute to achieving the sustainable consumption and production. And we want to promote those good practices so that if you are interested, please reach out to us and we can see how to support you into implementing those good practices. So in the presentation, you can see my email. Please feel free to reach out to me. And also we will share the presentation to all participants that have registered, so you will have access to it. So here you can see a few good practices that we already have developed, and through those regular webinars, we will present them to you. You will see that for now we have 10 good practices. So I tried here in this slide to gather them based on the topic they are covering. So we have some good practices on public policies, eco-labels, and sustainable public procurement, with the first one that is quite general, showing how those two tools can be combined to achieve greater objectives. And also we have one specifically dedicated to the constructions material. We developed a couple of good practices on supporting tools that exist, and the webinar today is introducing to you those two good practices on e-marketplace and e-catalog. But we have also a good practice on how to develop a pre-approved list that I invite you to have a look at. We developed good practices around raising awareness. So one is on how eco-labels and certification schemes can measure their impacts. We have another one on how certification schemes can educate better consumers and companies. And the third one is on how governments can educate better the entire public procurement ecosystem. So also, if we have public procurers today here in this call, it's an interesting topic for you to have a look at. And the final section is dedicated to biodiversity. So how certification schemes can have more ambitious criteria on biodiversity, and also the final one, which is the one that for which we already had the webinar. It's on how eco-labels and certification schemes, as well as sustainable public procurement policies, can be embedded in the NBSAP's national biodiversity strategies and actions. Here, I'm not going to enter into any details because Ashley will do that, but just to show you quickly our good practices that we have developed on marketplace of sustainable products and services. And so in these documents, when you will read it, because I'm sure you're interested and you will read it, we've developed the case of Malaysia and Thailand. So an e-marketplace, what it is, it's an online platform that shows products and services that have a reduced impact on the environment. So how do we know that those products and services have a reduced impact on the environment? One of the way, but a credible way of doing it, is by selecting products that are certified by eco-labels, by certification schemes, by energy ratings, by all those environmental labels that we can trust. So this is the e-marketplace, a virtual place where you can find those products. But it's not intended to support direct purchase. This is something important. It's not a place where you can go and click and say, okay, I'll buy this product. It's a place where you know the kind of products that exist. And this is really important for public procurers. And again, Ashley will explain all this a bit more in detail. Here I wanted to show quickly the case study that we developed on Malaysia. They have the Mi Hijau directory. You can see below the print screen of their website. And as you see, there are different products. You can filter by product category and so on, but you can know which product has less environmental impact. It shows you the criteria that have been used, so really useful. And we have also developed a case study about the Thai Green Directory. And here I would like to thank Chatri again for presenting this good practice more in detail today in the webinar. The second good practice is on e-catalog. So here in this good practice, we have showcased the example of Korea. Italy and Bremen in Germany. So e-catalogues are slightly different from are really different actually from e-marketplace, because it's also a space where you can see and find different products. Not all of them have been selected based on their environmental impact or their sustainability. It's gather an entire range of products, but what we are interested in what is interesting in this e-catalog is that the public procurer can purchase directly on this virtual space. And what we want to promote is that this e-catalog also includes environmental information for the product, so that the procurer can directly purchase the product also based on their reduced environmental impact. And as I said, we developed the case of Korea, of Italy here, and you can see the price screen of those platforms, and the case of Bremen in Germany. And Ashley will give us more information about this. So here I stop. You can see a couple of links here that can be of interest to you. Again, we will share the presentation with all of you, so you will be able to have access to it. And with this, I'll stop. And Ashley, please, I will ask you to join me. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley, again for being with us today.
Thank you, Letitia. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you very much for having me here today. It's a pleasure. This is a topic that we researched for another project a couple of years ago called Scaling SCP, where we're also looking at how to boost the demand for sustainable products through public procurement, and also in doing so boost the supply of these products and the demand for eco-labels. So let me just jump straight in with an overview of what sustainable public procurement is. Perhaps not everyone in the audience today is that familiar with what we're talking about and why it's so important in environmental terms. So really, sustainable public procurement is a huge opportunity because globally, governments are estimated to spend around $13 trillion a year, or 15% of global GDP, on their goods and services that they're purchasing. So if this was channeled into sustainable products and services, it would be a huge investment in the green economy. And of course, it's also a direct way that governments can reduce their own carbon footprint. And a lot of governments have already recognized the potential of sustainable procurement and have been trying to implement it for several decades in some cases now. But despite all of the efforts that have gone into SPP, there's still only a small proportion of procurement spend at this time, which is actually being channeled into SPP and into sustainable products, which means that there's a big investment opportunity being missed and that there's a lot of environmental benefits being missed out on. So why are these leaks occurring? Well, first, SPP is either not being applied at all, or where it is being applied, it's being applied inconsistently, which means that different contracting authorities, so different public buyers, are setting different requirements, which makes it more difficult for companies to bid for public contracts, and overall it weakens the signal which is being sent to the market. So a couple of years ago, when we looked into this issue, we wanted to determine why is this happening. And there's some typical common barriers to SPP, which really exist across all countries. First, sustainable public procurement requires market awareness. It needs public procurers who understand the product that they're buying and what sustainable options are available as an alternative. And this is actually quite complicated and difficult for procurers because they're not responsible for buying one type of product. They're responsible for buying every single thing that the public sector needs. So one person might be buying furniture one day and computers another day. So that's a lot of knowledge that a person needs to have to buy sustainably. They also need the skills to translate that knowledge into sustainable and verifiable public procurement criteria. That means that they need to understand the technical aspects of a product and what makes that product more sustainable than a conventional option. And once they do that, they also need to know how to check these products and verify that these sustainability criteria are met. And of course, eco-labels are a very valuable tool in doing that, but not often eco-labels aren't available for a product or they aren't available in that market. And then finally, both of these things take time, and having time is a resource that many of us are a bit short on in our working lives. And what we also see in many countries is that the onus to do sustainable public procurement is placed on individual procurers or individual contracting authorities. And what this means is that every ministry, every department, every city, any government entity that's buying is in large part responsible for its own purchasing. And this isn't a barrier per se to sustainable public procurement. On the one hand, it can actually be an advantage. It means that ambitious cities and ministries have opportunities to be innovative and to try new things. And this is where a lot of the good examples of how SPP can work in practice, this is how they occur, that one city decides to try something new and take a risk, so to say. But on the other hand, the majority of contracting authorities are very risk averse. They're not ambitious and they need support. And in these cases, there's a lot of tried and tested ways of doing SPP. And these purchasers, these procurers, they don't need to reinvent the wheel. So there has to be a better way to streamline public procurement and send a stronger signal to the market at the same time that sustainable products are being demanded and being demanded at scale by the public sector. And this is what digital tools like e-marketplaces and e-catalogues can offer us. And as Letitia already gave us a bit of an overview, these are similar but also different types of tools. An e-marketplace is an online list of sustainable products and services. For example, a list of eco-labeled products. And I'm very excited to hear Dr. Chutri's deep dive into the Thailand Environment Agency and the Thai Green Cart as an excellent real-life example of an e-marketplace. But then, as well as e-marketplaces, you have this other category called e-catalogues. And these are online shops of pre-approved suppliers or pre-approved goods or services, which public buyers can buy from directly. And just to illustrate this difference a little bit more, here I compare a typical or an example e-catalog to an example e-marketplace. Of course, in reality, it also depends a lot on the specific tool and how it's been designed. But in general, we can see that an e-catalog addresses some of the barriers to SPP a bit more directly, because it really eliminates the need to apply SPP criteria. It really streamlines this procurement process. It can give a lot of visibility to sustainable options, but as Letitia already mentioned as well, e-catalogues are not commonly developed just for sustainable products and services. So this depends on the functionality and the design of the e-catalog. But what it really does is it eliminates the need for individual procurers to develop and apply SPP criteria, to assess bids against these criteria. They don't need to run a tender at all. And if the e-catalog is designed to do so, it can also be a really valuable tool in helping monitoring and evaluation of SPP. But on the other hand, what we see with e-marketplaces is that they typically are more indirect in their benefit to SPP because they don't have this direct purchase functionality. But this also means that they have lower institutional requirements, which is their real benefit. And let me just explain a little bit more what I mean there. So in order to enable direct purchase, e-catalogues, so the kind of online shop option, they have to be designed in a way which is compatible with public procurement regulations. And anyone who is familiar with public procurement regulations knows that they are complicated and they can be very demanding. This is why e-catalogues typically require a competent body, so a central purchasing authority or the Ministry of Economy or so on, whoever is responsible for public procurement in a country. They need a body that's mandated to do centralized procurement on behalf of others. And what we see in practice is that whether centralized procurement is done via an e-catalogue or not, it often also has to be embedded within the legal framework and is usually accompanied with mandatory use obligations, meaning that other contracting authorities have to use centralized tools where they're available. So there's a very structured legal framework and institutional framework around an e-catalogue. In comparison, an e-marketplace can be created by any institution with an interest in promoting sustainable public procurement or sustainable consumption in general. So this could be an eco-label body, it could be any type of government body. For example, a Ministry of Environment might be interested in backing an e-marketplace. Even suppliers, so industry bodies or trade associations could back e-marketplaces. Or environmental NGOs. So really anyone with an interest in promoting sustainable purchasing could set up an e-marketplace. And because they're not based on direct purchase, they can also be set up in a way that provides a more comprehensive market overview than an e-catalogue. So they could show all of the eco-label products available in a market instead of only those that have also gone through the verification process that's required before e-catalogue is set up, which is something I'll come back to in the second half of my presentation today. And then, yeah, of course, if an e-marketplace is made publicly available, it can also be used by other market actors, so not just the public sector. It could be used as a buying tool for companies or as a source for companies to get information on what sustainability means in their sector or as a means of benchmarking themselves against other manufacturers and service providers. So quite a quick overview to what is quite a complex and quite a new area for SPP. It's quite an innovative way to think about how we can promote sustainable public procurement. So at this point, I'm very happy to be able to pass on to Dr. Chutri Futrat and learn more about how the e-marketplace is working in real life in Thailand. So I'll pause my presentation here, and if anyone has any questions on that first half, I'd be happy to take them at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. And yes, please, Chatri, now let's go in a deep dive in the Thai Kai. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to sharing the case study for Thailand e-marketplace. For my presentation, may I give you some information of Thailand in 3 topics. Let's start at the first one. What is the e-marketplace in Thailand? The e-marketplace is an electronic government procurement that is a system support the government procurement, but not for the general public use. This platform is serve government agency by allowing them to purchase the goods and the service from the approved vendor list. This is the sum in whole process in the summary. The electronic government procurement is under the Government Procurement Standard Office by the Comptroller General Department. In this system of government procurement, the government and the vendor have to register in the system. For the vendor, they have to input the product or service information, and it will be present in the e-catalog. When the government would like to purchase the product or procure the service, they have to develop the term of reference or maybe look for the specification in the e-catalog and publish it as an specification announcement. Then the vendor can see the announcement and also they can offer the bidding or maybe the quotation. This is depend on the budget request. In summary of the electronic government procurement, the feature is suitable for the government and the supplier, but not for the direct consumer. For the vendor, they can register to the system, which is open for any company to participate in the public procurement. The vendor that provide the product or service that are eco-friendly, they can be a part of the green public procurement, and they may receive the competitive advantage in winning the award contract. And for the public information, it is the platform to help the transparency process by the bidding announcement and the award contract are visible and open. This ensures that the transparency of the budget spent, and it is the government effort to reduce the corruption and promote the accountability. This is an example of the website of the e-marketplace in Thailand. There will be searching icon for maybe the vendor can find the announcement, the e-market registration, the bidding requirement, and also the e-catalog. The example of e-catalog in here for pollution, for the Comptroller General Department is the general and simple products like the office supply material. When the procurer would like to purchase the product, they can go to look into this specification of the product here. And if they cannot find the eco-friendly product in here, they can find to another system that we call in Thailand, it is the green card. Green card is support for the green public procurement. It will show the more information of certified product. This database is responsible by the Pollution Control Department. The feature of this system is quite different from the previous one that I mentioned, because of this one is not the market, but is the catalog for the both vendor, both public procurer and also consumer can find the environmental friendly product and service. For the vendor or the company who would like to get register in the green card, they have to go to register and submit the document. Then the committee of the Pollution Control Department will verify of the document and also approve, and then their product will be present in this list. For the procurer and for general consumer, they can come to searching for the environmental friendly product in this area. And also there is the application which is suitable for general consumer. The Green Public Procurement list under the Pollution Control Department will consist of two different verification. It includes the third-party verification, which is the Thai Green Label, operated by Thailand Environment Institute, which is the Taiwan Eco Labeling. It is considered the life cycle impact of the product and the service. And for the other labels like the government verification, it is the reliable agency. For example, the green card by the Pollution Control Department. And for the carbon reduction footprint is operated by Thailand Greenhouse Gas Organization. And for the green hotel, this is managed by the Department of Environmental and Climate Change. Right now, there are about 2,000 lists of products that are environmental friendly. Most of them, around half of the list, come from the green label certification and followed by the carbon reduction footprint and the green hotel, respectively. The second part, how the e-marketplace can support the green public procurement. For Thai e-market, it is verify of the green product that play the key role in supporting GPP by integrating the sustainability criteria into government procurement process. The system enabling the government agency to easily identify and select the eco-labeling products. The vendor can input the product information in the system, whether they get certified or maybe they can include other environmental friendly option of the product. The government can encourage to prioritize the purchasing eco-friendly of the product and service in accordance with the green procurement policy. Also, it is not only of the price comparison, but government can also compare the product environmental performance as well. Also, the system is the foster for the competition among the vendor to provide the sustainability solution, not only the price competition. And this motivates the business to innovate and offer greener alternative. Moreover, the system is conduct and record electronically. So the process ensure that the green procurement standards are applied consistently and transparently. This is quite important. And the last part before my end of presentation, the best practice of the e-market for green public procurement initiative in Thailand. May I summarize in 3 important key aspects. The first one is the Thai government. They set the specific guideline for ensuring that government agencies are making sustainable choice. Also, the vendors are encouraged to meet the green procurement criteria, either by certifying their product as the green or adopting sustainable practice to remain competitiveness. And the last one, as the digital system, the data collection is record and is allow the government to track of the purchasing, also evaluate the environmental impact of the green procurement. But all of this, it needs to integrate the sustainability practice into these 3 aspects in order to make the e-market to significantly contribute to the green public procurement goals and driving both the environmental and economic benefit across the government procurement. So this is all for my presentation. Thank you for your attention. I may go quickly. If you have any question, please feel free to raise.
Thank you very much, Chetri Furat, for this presentation and for introducing us to the case of Thailand. You've been doing a fantastic work. Thanks for that. And now I would like also to call back Ashley McLennan to share some concrete examples on e-catalogues. Thank you, Ashley.
Yes, so thank you for having me back again, and sorry for having to see me again. But yeah, I thought it made sense to take a break there and to hear from e-marketplaces before we get into the concrete example of e-catalogues. But I think what we can see from the Thai environment cart as well is that, yeah, there's no standard model for an e-marketplace or e-catalog, and I think that the Thai example there is actually somewhere in between an e-marketplace and e-catalog, especially because it's been designed so specifically around public procurers' needs. And that's one of the advantages of e-marketplaces, is they have some flexibility to be designed in the way that makes most sense for the country. Before I get into some specifics on e-catalogs, I also want to start by mentioning that e-catalogs are not always the best solution for a country. This is particularly the case in countries with highly motivated or highly skilled procurers, or where regions and cities are highly autonomous and ambitious. In these cases, centralized approaches are often not welcome, as the regions and cities want to control their own spending, of course, and also because yeah, as I said in the beginning, it leaves space for more ambition and innovation and testing things out. But with that being said, let's look now into how e-catalogues can be constructed and to what effect. So e-catalogues, well, they're designed in a way that meets public procurement regulations. And this means that they have to respect the principles of transparency and fairness, and to safeguard against corruption. And these are very important principles in public procurement for obvious reasons. And what we identified when we studied this a couple of years ago is that there's two methods that e-catalogues can be designed in a way that complies with public procurement regulations. The first is using framework agreements, otherwise known as multiple award schedules, and the second is focusing on under threshold procurement, meaning below the monetary value at which an open competition is legally required. What we should also say is e-catalogues are also more suited to some types of goods and services than others. They really only make sense when products, there's a competitive market for the product, and there's also sufficient demand from contracting authorities, and it should also be possible to define a price per unit. So there's a lot of technical terms in that slide. For people who are not familiar with public procurement, you might be feeling a little bit lost. So let me explain in a bit more detail what each of these types of e-catalogues mean. So first, let's start with under threshold e-catalogues, because these are a little bit more straightforward. So as I explained, threshold in procurement is the contract value above which a competitive procedure is required, which means that the public buyer is obliged or required to publish an open invitation to bid, and any supplier can take part in that competition. If the purchase is under threshold, it means that it's possible to buy from a supplier directly without running an open competition. Because of the low contract value, it's considered lower risk to do this. But even in these cases, it is still important that certain conditions are met and that the goods meet defined requirements, because of course it's still public money that's being spent, and you want to make sure that it's being spent well and that you're getting the product or service that you're buying. So verification is still necessary. And when you use an e-catalogue for under threshold procurement, it means that these verification checks only need to be made once by one central body. And then other procurers can buy directly from that without running their own checks and kind of duplicating that effort. So, for example, in a typical process for populating an under threshold catalogue, the supplier would submit a request to be added to the e-catalogue. They would have to provide all of the necessary information about their product and as well as their business. This would then be evaluated by someone like a central procurement authority or a central purchasing body. And once approved, it would be added to the e-catalogue where procurers could just buy directly in the same way that we as individuals would go onto an online shop and click, buy one with one click. There's a very good example of this in practice. So in Italy, they have an electronic marketplace for the public administration, which is called MIPA for short. It actually was set up a long time ago in 2004, and it's administered by the central purchasing body CONSIP. Suppliers use MIPA to upload data, and that includes their information on their geographic region, so where they will deliver to, how long deliveries will take, what the characteristics or the technical specifications of their products are, as well as if they have any certifications and labels, including ecolabels and their energy performance certificates. So CONSIP can approve the request to be included on MIPA. They can also ask suppliers for clarification, and if the supplier doesn't meet the requirements, they'll be rejected. So MIPA is very easy, for instance, for small and medium enterprises to get listed on MIPA and then to be able to supply a much wider market of the public sector that they would maybe otherwise be able to access. And likewise, the public sector can see a lot more options that are available, and it makes public procurement more competitive. And the numbers going through MIPA are huge. Between January and June this year alone, 350,000 contracts have already been signed, worth 8.59 billion euros. But I should also mention that MIPA doesn't exist in isolation. Italy also has minimum environmental criteria, so procurers must buy green products where they exist, and they're also obliged to use central purchasing tools where they exist. And this is a theme that we'll see again in the next example, which is e-catalogues based on framework agreements. So for anyone not familiar with a framework agreement, this means an agreement with an economic operator for the supply of goods or services in which the maximum price and minimum technical specifications of the contract are set. And just to be clear, the framework agreement is an agreement really basically just of the terms and conditions of the contract. It doesn't actually, this is not where the purchase is being made. It doesn't agree what quantities are going to be purchased. It's the first step of the procurement. It can be used to populate an e-catalogue. In this example, the central purchaser would announce the competition. For example, they would set up a framework for eco-labeled cleaning products. They would then verify that the submitted bids meet the environmental requirements as well as any other requirements that a supplier would need to meet. And then they add all of the verified products to the e-catalogue, and again, procurers can then buy these products with a kind of one-click model. And a very good example of a framework agreement-based e-catalogue is from Korea. They have an e-procurement system called CONEPS, and as part of that, they have an e-shopping mall with a dedicated section for green products. This was launched back in 2006, and as of 2019, which was the figures that were available when we were researching this a few years ago, there was already 15,000 sustainable products in the green shopping mall section. That's close to 4,000 companies supplying them over 165 product categories. The way the green shopping mall and the CONEPS e-procurement system in general works is it's based on multiple award schedule contracts. These are unit price contracts. So the MAS agreements are managed by the Public Procurement Service, and in order to participate in the framework, suppliers are asked to satisfy minimum requirements. This can include their past performance or their credit rating to make sure that they're a reliable supplier. Once they've fulfilled all of those, the public procurement service negotiates the price on which they'll be included in the catalogue, and then they award a contract, and the supplier is committed by that contract to supply goods and services for a specific price for a period of 1 to 2 years. But of course, in this time where inflation has been an issue, it's important to mention that there is also allowances that prices can go up when inflation goes over 3%. And there needs to be a minimum 3 suppliers in order to set up a mass schedule contract. But once the mass is signed, the products become available on the e-shopping mall, and procurers can buy there without any need for a further tender. Or in the case of a very large procurement, they do also still have a second stage of competition, just because, yeah, it makes an economic sense to do so, as well as it's important for transparency reasons. What we see when we look at Korea is they have a very successful system. According to the OECD, the benefits of their system mean that more suppliers have been able to participate in public procurement, including SMEs, who actually make up 98% of the mass contractors. It's also increased competition in terms of price, but also in terms of quality. More options are available to procurers now, and it's streamlined the ordering process. And in general, Korea, there's been a very strong growth of green products and services available in the Korean market, perhaps in part due to the e-catalogue. But again, like with Italy, it's important to mention that the e-catalogue does not exist in isolation, but there is a very strong supportive framework for sustainable public procurement in Korea, which includes mandatory green public procurement obligations, fiscal incentives for contracting authorities who perform well, and also a strong system of monitoring performance, evaluating it, and improving upon it. So that's been quite fast, but I want to leave some time at the end for some questions. So I will stop there. Thank you very much for your attention. And in addition to the good practices developed by UNEP, which Letitia already mentioned, I can also just highlight our e-catalogue study that we published in 2022. So if you're interested in some further information as I presented today, I would also direct you there. So thank you very much. And I'll pass back to you, Letitia.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you. We had some question. One was in the chat, and thanks, Chatri, you already replied to it, but perhaps Ashley, you would like to share some other examples if you know. So Nadia asked us if there is a re-verification process in place once vendors are approved, and Chatri explained that in Thailand it's valid for 3 years, the green card list. But I don't know, Ashley, if you would like to share a few other examples. And I think you said something very important, that there is no standard model, so it also depends on each country necessity. But would you like to add something, Ashley, on this?
Well, as you say, there's no standard model, and it really depends on the public procurement requirements in a country. So every country has its own public procurement regulations. Typically, though, there are requirements around fairness and transparency, and so this verification procedure is a critical question in how, to what extent public procurers can trust the e-catalogue or the e-marketplace and be sure that when they use it, they can use it risk-free, so to say. So that's a very important process for encouraging public procurers to use e-marketplaces and e-catalogues, is assuring them that the results are credible.
Thank you. We really have 2 minutes. So let's close this with a very few quick words. Chatri, I would like to ask you, perhaps if you, actually to both of you, if you would need to give some strong arguments for someone that is willing to develop an e-marketplace or an e-catalog in its country, and this person needs to talk to the Minister of Finance, what would be your 2 strong arguments that you would recommend this person to use to convince the Minister of Finance of launching an e-marketplace or an e-catalog? Chatri, would you like to start?
Okay, thank you for your question. I would recommend that the one who would like to start develop the green marketplace, you can firstly you can include the requirement for certified eco-labeling product that are the third party first, and then if not in your country, you can move to another level of reliability, like the second party or maybe first party or self-declare. But for self-declare, is in EU is it like the regulation that avoid the greenwashing already. So you have to look for the reliable certification body like the eco-labeling under the GEN member.
Thank you, Chatri. And Ashley, I would like to ask you the same question. What would be the key points, the key arguments?
Well, of course, from Eco Institute, we're interested in promoting sustainable public procurement because of the environmental opportunities. But if I was speaking to the Ministry of Economy or Finance, I would put it in their own terms and say it can cut red tape, it can create efficiencies in public procurement, and can save money. So.
I can see that you've been working a lot with Minister of Finance. Thank you very much to both of you for your time, for showcasing those really interesting cases. On my side, let me share again quickly my screen, because we have new webinars coming, and sorry. I have some issue with my, well, I'll stop sharing my screen. I have issue with my own screen, but please, Mylis, if you could add the links. We have several webinars coming that we would like to invite you to join us. So then the next one is in November. It's about measuring the environmental impact of eco-labels, and here again we will collaborate with the Eco Institute to present you those good practices. So we'll have 2 webinars on this topic: one for Latin America and North America, that is going to take place on the 12th of November. So the time will be in their morning. And we'll have another one in English on the 14th of November. And the time will be rather in the evening of Asia. So this is what is coming, measuring the environmental impact of eco-labels. And in December, we'll have another webinar on public policy on eco-labels and sustainable public procurement. So how those 2 tools can support each other. And we'll have also in this webinar a special focus on construction material. So here I stop. Thank you again to our panelists and to all the participants. And please do reach out to us in case if you are interested in implementing those good practices. We'll be more than happy to see how we can support you in this journey. Thank you very much to everyone. And goodbye.